Welcome to Whatcha Makin', a podcast about sharing ideas, discussing the business of making, and connecting with the maker community. Your hosts are Alex Adams, an engineer turned furniture maker of Type A Furniture, and an alien pretending to be a DIY craftsman, Alex Duffy of Duffy Woodcraft. This is Whatcha Makin'.
Hello, makers, and welcome to Whatcha Watchin, a podcast where we talk about all our current projects, spotlight makers throughout the community, and remind you that it's bad luck to place a baguette upside down. This week's main topic is all about buying tools, new and used, and we're joined by a very special guest, but more on them in a minute. I'm Alex Duffy, and you can find me on Instagram and on YouTube at Duffy Woodcraft, and as an instructor over at cncwithme.com.
And I'm Alex Adams, and you can find me sweating my butt off in this 100-degree plus heat at Type A Furniture on Instagram. And let's see, we've got just one more special person who can get that gift that Mr. Duffy will be sending out to one of the first 5 patrons, and those are paid patrons. So I will walk you through what those paid tiers are and what you actually will get with those. So each level comes with like a welcome gift as well as like, you know, the recurring benefit. So for our introductory level, that's the instant release. So that's getting early access to the podcast release. And that also gets you access to the quarterly Zoom meeting that we will begin setting up. And then we've got a brand new sticker that we designed that Mr. Duffy is holding up, and you can see on the YouTube feed of this podcast.
That is slick. Look at that.
Yeah, it turned out really nice. The next level is the Riddler. So that's when you actually get stickers from both of the Alexes that are of our own brands. All of the previous benefits of the previous tier, as well as... I think there was another benefit on there.
Questions.
Listed? Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, yep. Being able to submit questions. That's why I called it Riddler. And then the next level is You're the Captain now. So you get a What You're Making hat with that. And you get to help choose the actual discussion topics there. So you really get to drive the boat there because you are driving the discussion that we have on the podcast.
I see what you did there with those names.
Clever,
Well,
I know.
I know. All right. So this week we're, if you're already watching on YouTube, you can see his lovely face, but we are joined by a special guest. So
Who are you?
Okay, I wasn't prepared for that. So,
Neither was I.
Hey everybody, hola amigos. I'm Lee from Busted Knuckle Woodworks, woodworker and content creator who lives in Austin, Texas. Most of the time, you want to talk about hot, don't even talk to me about hot, okay?
Yeah, you've got another level down there.
Right.
you just came back from France, though.
That's true, right? So I was just going to say I live in Austin most of the time, but part-time I live in Paris. And it was super hot there too, man. It was 39 degrees.
Ooh.
What's that in freedom units?
Oh man, it's about 95 or
Yeah,
so.
that's pretty steamy.
Yeah, it's steamy for Paris, yeah.
Which
So,
they don't, there's not a lot of AC there, right? Because of the climate?
Right. The French
You just smoke a cigarette, right? That's how you help with the heat.
Exactly. You just kind of blow smoke on each other. No, the only 2% of French households have central air.
Ooh.
And even the offices, most of the offices don't have air conditioning. The like, you know, here in the States, when it gets really hot, people go to the movie theaters, you know, to cool off because they keep it like an ice box in there. And yeah, they don't have air conditioning in the theaters. None of that stuff.
Do people just go to the beach then?
Well, they go to like some of the big fancy department stores will have like H&M or Lafayette or whatever, or some of the big like the nice shops on the Champs-Elysees will have air conditioning. So a lot of people time.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that they had pools.
No, they don't have.
And I was going to be really impressed.
I was going to say that's what you really want, a bunch of hot, sticky people trying on clothes.
No. But anyway, yeah. I mean, they opened up for the first time in a century. They opened up swimming in the Seine in 3 locations. So, they cleaned up. They spent €1 billion cleaning up the Seine for the Olympics last year. And they installed giant, like, holding tanks. I'll tell you right now, you couldn't make me get in there if you pushed me. I would just float out on top. I wouldn't even go in. Now you have to remember the Seine. They used to float dead Protestants down it during the Reformation. Right. Okay, so God knows what's in there. I'm not interested. But yeah, they are opening up public swimming in the Seine. So
nice. Yeah, I don't know if I would want to go digging around in there myself.
Now, probably all tourists who just don't know how dirty it is.
Now, is it really bad luck to place a baguette upside down? Because I never heard that. I know a lot about baguettes.
And which side do you know is down?
Well, the part that's rises is the top, and the bottom part is the down. So it's.
Oh, I thought you meant like lengthwise upside down. Like, because I was thinking like when you carry it in the bag and you put it in the bag, like
There's a flat spot on it where it sits in the oven.
Okay, so the non-flat spot. Okay.
So in doing my show prep, I was like, give me some funny information about France, and one of the things was, I guess it's superstition dating back to medieval times. If you place a baguette upside down, you have bad luck for the rest of the day.
Wow. Okay, I'll have to remember that.
Yep. So be careful.
I was not aware. Now a good baguette only has 4 ingredients. De la farine, du sel. How do you say yeast? I can't remember how to say yeast. And de l'eau, water. So if you ask for a baguette tradition, that's what you get. In some places they'll have fancy baguettes with other junk in them, but you want to get the baguette tradition with only the 4 ingredients. Those are the good ones.
Same 4 ingredients for a croissant.
That's how you have to say it, with the phlegm in the back of the throat.
Exactly.
Our listeners are enjoying this.
Yeah, they are.
All right. Well, why don't we move on to our first segment?
What you doing?
So in this segment, we talk about what we're making. So on this week, and I'll get into the next segment of what I've been up to, but mainly I'm still working on my speaker gifts for AWFS Fair, which is the big woodworking convention coming up in July in Vegas. I'm doing all of the thank you gifts for the speakers for the convention. So I have about 70 different gift bags that I'm creating for them. And it's a lot of little products all go in the gift bags. But one of the products I'm doing is a wooden notebook, which I've never made before. So I bought like a binding machine to do the wire binding, and all the I'm not making the paper, but I'm cutting the paper down to the size for the notebook and punching it in the holes and everything. And so that's been a process of putting that all together. But
so the cover is wood though, right?
The cover and back are both wood.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And then I have the logo for the fair on the front, and then my logo on the back. But I'm making them all out of hickory.
Oh, hickory. Okay.
Yeah. It's a pretty wood. It's a light color, and it's got some good grain color.
Hickory's very common down here in Texas.
Yep. So that's what I've been focusing on, and I'm just starting to get videos going again.
Is that a gift bag that Tony Soprano would be wanting to steal?
Sure.
They're high quality. Oh, you didn't remember that from The Sopranos?
Yeah, I did.
See, I never watched The Sopranos.
Oh,
so that's
my God!
bad.
What? Okay, done. We're done.
Oh, sorry. Bye, Lee.
You never watched The Sopranos?
I
my
didn't have
God.
HBO growing up.
Oh, okay.
And then I
I
never
didn't have
won
it either,
that.
but I watched it like 2 years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago.
Yeah, you can still
So-
watch it, you know.
Yeah, you can binge it.
It'll go on my playlist. I do
It's still,
I do like a good
it
gangster.
still holds up well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. What I was going to say was that show was kind of the beginning of the so-called second golden age of television, you know, with all the, you know, when streaming came in and so forth. Yeah, The Sopranos, you know, along with a few other shows like The Wire and so forth, those early HBO blockbuster shows, you know. Yeah.
Nice.
Definitely worth
Well, what
watching.
have you been making this week, Lee?
Well, you know, I make YouTube videos now. I don't actually do any woodworking. No, I do. I do, but I don't film that stuff. Although I did make a really nice frame, for picture frame, poster frame for my last video, the one that I just put out last week. In fact, hold on a second. Hold on.
So for our video or for our non-video listeners, he has just taken off his headphones and is getting up so he can go get the frame, I assume.
Right. I don't know if you guys can see this. Okay, so this is the
Nice.
Olympic commemorative. Oh, let me see if I can point this. This is the Olympic commemorative poster, the official one, and this is the tricolor. This is the French flag, and it's wavy, and the wood is actually poplar. And the reason I chose poplar is because I don't know if you know this, but the Mona Lisa is painted on poplar. A lot of people think it's oil on canvas, but it's oil on poplar.
So
And
is it like a pulp, like a kind of like a paper made out of poplar, or is it like a veneer?
Wood panel.
A wood panel, yeah, a slice out of a tree, yeah.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't aware of that. And it's relatively small. It's not much bigger than this actual poster. So I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's only about maybe, I mean, in terms of inch, it's 770 millimeters by 530 millimeters. So that's about like American poster size, like 18 by 24, or maybe like 27 by 20. Yeah, it's not very big.
Well, and that frame is gorgeous. Now I watched the video, and it was not just about the frame. It was all about. It was all about. You said we were talking measurements here,
Right.
about the conversion between metric and imperial.
Right. So the video answers three questions, or I attempt to answer three questions. The first is why and how the metric system was developed, why America, the United States, never fully adopted it, and whether or not it's like objectively better for woodworking purposes. You know, so that's why I built the frame. Right, the frame is all metric dimensions. You know, each stripe is 25 millimeters, and Jessam had sent me a whole set of their metric tools, so I used that, and it was quite interesting actually to do an entirely metric project. You know, I went all full out, right? I mean, I even changed the controls on my mini split to centigrade to Celsius. Full commitment.
Full commitment.
Yeah. So
Cool.
Yeah.
Alex, what have you been working on?
Oh, lots and lots of stuff. So I have some stuff for show and tell as well. So I did a little bit of work on the laser. Let me back up a little bit. So I took a picture of my house and did a line drawing conversion and then lasered it onto a board.
Cherry.
Yes, this is cherry. I did another house on the other side it's a little bit wider and bigger. So
Very cool.
Yes, put it on my head like a hat. Yeah, I had to get another bigger house to make it look much more impressive. So that's why I did it on that side. And that one has a lot more detail on like the leaves of the trees and the shrubbery and the shingles. So I can kind of peel it back a little bit and remove some of those details to get it to etch faster if I want it to come in at a better price point for someone. So I've got that. That came from my wife had said, "Oh yeah, you could do this," because I had made that laser engraved cutting board for the realtor that they had for their closing of a house. So she's like, "You should do, that actual house itself." So I laser engraved that, and that was actually part of that little business networking group that I go to. It was my week to present this past week, so that was why I did one of those, so I could essentially show that off.
Now that's your house, though, right?
The smaller one is my house.
Right.
The bigger one is not.
Right, but you could do. The idea would be you would do anybody's house, right? Or like a house that they just
you can take any picture of the house and then convert it to a line drawing. So
Wow.
I just use ChatGPT for that to because you can get programs that do like line drawings and stuff, but I was having ChatGPT adjust how much detail was in there and like line thickness and those kind of things.
Gotcha.
So that made it easy to make some of those tweaks. I did attempt to try and do like portraits of people, but it just made my son look like a dwarf with like a man face.
Do you have Adobe Illustrator? Adobe Illustrator will do the same. You can convert.
I have never really dove into Adobe, so that would be a complete new world for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and anyway, yeah, that might need a little bit of work, but more of the like static, like more or less organic type stuff, I think comes through okay with that. And I also brought my 3D printer.
Add new windows, 3 front doors, 4 mailboxes.
Yeah. All those extra features that make your taxes go up, which my taxes on my house are going to go up, which is wonderful. So that's great. But anyway, for that business meeting, I also brought in my 3D printer to basically do a live demo on just printing a small item and to kind of show some of the things I had been selling recently to the group. So I got a little bit of stuff to prep for that I did. And then I have been printing a lot of Pokemon cards to sell. So
like illegally or 3D printing?
3D printing.
Okay.
So not like the paper printing.
Forgery printing.
Well, if I was going to go forgery, you got to go big and just go straight for the money, right? Just skip the middleman of selling the card, right? No, yeah. So 3-dimensional cards. So it's a lot of those are made by people convert stuff from Hue Forge to do that kind of like very, very thin layers, and each layer is like a different color. So you kind of get that interesting artistic interpretation of those Pokemon cards, which is it's pretty darn close to those. So I've been making some adjustments on some of those, and then as I've been selling more 3D prints, I've been optimizing the print plate to have more of an object, so then I can just print one plate of something, and then once I get low on inventory, that I just print another plate, because I just been up to this point just kind of like sampling stuff because I didn't know what would actually sell and what wouldn't. So I'd been kind of doing like only like onesie twosie on things. But as I've sold stuff, made it a little bit better of a bulk batch. So I've been getting more accustomed to Bamboo Lab and tweaking some settings within that. So as I've been changing some settings to make it do a print faster or get the same quality, but maybe skip out on a few things that I don't actually need that came with the original file. So making some of those tweaks to make those prints a little bit better.
Now, did you guys know, I didn't mention this during my segment, but 2 days ago, I just got my very, very, very first 3D printer. I'm actually...
Ooh.
Yes. Yeah.
What did you get?
I've never 3D printed anything. I've never actually even seen a 3D printer working in real life. I've never laser printed anything either, and I got the laser module that goes with it. So I got the H2D, the Bamboo Lab H2D.
Oh, I hate you.
The big new fancy one.
Yeah, the full combo with the laser, the 40-watt laser module. Now they sent it to me, right? So I have to do like some videos about it. Yeah, like I say, I'm a complete newbie, so I'm just learning. I've been spending pretty much yesterday and today just learning like about the materials and so forth, and what they do and what they are and all that stuff. I just have no idea about that. I've been talking to a few people. Maybe I'll call one of you guys if I get
do me a
stuck.
favor and give them my name, because they don't answer my emails. So
Okay.
I could use one of those. I have an old Ender and it is a nightmare to use. So I would happily plug their company.
Let's try again.
All right, so for those who are watching on our YouTube, you'll notice that we've kind of shifted a little bit here. Alex is wearing a new shirt. So this actually is taking place the next day after we started recording the first part of the podcast. Our podcast recording software had some problems, and they knocked us out for the night. So we're back the next day, and Alex, you were talking about your 3D printing and everything that was going on there. So what's going on?
Well, I think Lee wanted me to change my shirt because I think he said that I smelled. But anyway.
No. Now, listen. So when I had a podcast, this used to happen. But we would always fake it, right? So we'd wear the same clothes the next day so that we'd edit it like it never stopped. You see?
See, I only have black T-shirts, so I look like I wear the same clothes every day.
I'm wearing the same shirt. See, this is Hollywood stuff, guys. Okay, we're letting you in on the inside.
Yeah, so anyway, because we were talking a little bit about the H2D, and I've been intrigued by it because it's got the dual nozzle setup there. And so I actually, because when you go into Bamboo's slicer software, you can pick other printers. So I can see how much of a difference that makes on some of the prints that I have. And so one of the articulating Charizard prints that I had, to do 2 of them is like 20 hours, 19 hours. And if I had it on the H2D, that would be 13 hours.
Ooh.
So that was kind of interesting to see, like, all right, if I'm printing stuff, I can see how fast the H2D would actually be before even committing to it on some of the prints that I do. So that's kind of a nice way to, like, see if it makes a difference on my setup and my operations.
Sure, if you're doing a lot of printing, that would.
Well, yeah, especially if you're doing at least more than one color, because if it's not more than one color, that dual nozzle isn't going to do much for you unless you want to, like, do your own dedicated support material.
Right. And it prevents a lot of waste too, right? Because if you're changing colors, you know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, which I also found another setting on there that the amount of filament that it extrudes when it changes from colors, you can knock that down a little bit. There's like a multiplier, and that'll actually speed up your prints. Like, I think it sped up that 20-hour print to like 19 hours when I did that, because so often it's switching between filaments. So if you save like an extra 30 seconds and it's changing hundreds of times, that adds up over time very, very quickly.
Right.
You get that tower of multicolored printing over to the side that it queues up there.
Yes, the pyramid of poop on the side of all of the waste filament. But yeah, I've been tinkering a lot with Bamboo recently and figuring stuff out, because it still applies to a lot of stuff that I 3D printed in the past with some of like the design things, but like just looking at like the tool path, because there's a trace button that you can hit after you slice stuff to see where the tool head goes. And so obviously if it's taking more distance to go somewhere, it's going to take longer because it's got to travel there. So doing things like putting especially if you've got multiple parts for something that you're printing, putting the taller parts all together in the center is going to print faster than if those tall parts are like in the corners, and it has to go all the way over there as it's printing the last bit of those tall pieces. So there's some interesting things that you can do to speed up prints and make them faster and more efficient. So anyway, that's all I had about the Bamboo Studio specifically. But yeah, I've been to a couple of swim meets since we were last on, and during those swim meets, I've been also printing those articulating Charizards, those 20-hour prints. So one of them did just fine because I had added brims, and I had learned from my first time, because some of those articulated prints can have adhesion issues. So fortunately, I could go into the camera and kind of check on it, and you can select an item to stop printing mid-print if it like screws up, but you still have like another piece on there that you want to continue doing. So that was it was disheartening that it was like halfway through when I had to change that over, but it was good that I could at least get something out of it in the print.
That's a testament for Bamboo, because every other 3D printer I've used, if it fails at any point during the print, you're done. Like, you have to start all over, even if you're at 90%. Like, there's no way to fix it. So that's pretty cool that you can start.
Yeah, because I've had scenarios too where it's paused because of an issue, and it's been a couple hours where I've come back to it and resumed the print, and it's gone through just fine. Because I think I had one instance where like the filament got stuck somewhere or something like that, which is sometimes that just happens when you're doing those multi-prints, because it's feeding in new filament and taking it out and unrolling and re-rolling multiple spools, so you've got more failure points you're working with at that type of print.
Lee, what are you excited to make with your 3D printer first?
I have a lot of ideas for jig parts that I usually have made out of like plywood or MDF or whatever. You know, like here's a great example. So I did a video, not the last video I did, but the one before. On the thumbnail it says we're going bottomless. So if you remember,
I was intrigued by that one.
Yeah.
It made me click.
Right. So it's basically a bottomless table sled, right? But the thing is, I made the fence as tall as I could, given the fact that that Katz Moses stop block only so tall, right? And that's basically the tallest one I could find. I wanted to make the fence probably about 1.5 inches taller, but if I did that, there's just no stop block on the market that reaches down far enough for that tall of a fence. So that's one of the first things I want to print is a taller stop block. I have a lot of ideas for improvement on that particular bottomless sled, so I'm going to do some of those things. And I'm not really super interested in printing like a lot of the kind of the toys and stuff that people make and sell and so forth. But who knows? I mean, like I say, I'm very unfamiliar with it. And everybody that I talk to, including Mr. Adams over here, says that once you jump down that rabbit hole, you're gone for good. So.
Well, there's a lot of fun stuff that you can print, just like kitchen gadgets and like strainers and drying racks, all sorts of things. And especially if you've got any particular fandom that you subscribe to, whether it's, Pokemon or Harry Potter or anything like that, you can find little widgets that are fun with those, where you can, we've printed all the different wands from Harry Potter and golden snitches and all sorts of fun stuff. Yeah, so there's good things like that. Yeah,
look at me. Do I look like the Harry Potter demographic?
I think you're.
You look like a headmaster.
Yeah,
I was probably 50 when that came out. So, but
okay, so maybe Doctor Who.
Maybe there you go. But another thing is, if you watch my videos, you know how most people have French cleats. I don't have French cleats. I have slat wall, which is kind of a retail thing, right? It's very similar. And slat wall fixtures are kind of very difficult to customize out of wood, right? Because of the way that it hooks in and so forth. And so I just basically use like just off the shelf retail fixtures. And I'd like to be able to make custom tool holders that work in slat wall rather than a French cleat system. See, so I'm going to check that out too, I guess. I need to also learn like 3D, like Shaper 3D or Fusion 360 or something. So,
well, it depends on how complex your part is, because if you're doing just jigs and things where they're very basic shapes, you can do that within Bamboo Studio and just add stuff.
And then once you go down that rabbit hole of going on to like the free like Thingiverse and that kind of stuff,
right?
If there are people that are making parts that you like, reach out to them and be like, hey, can I pay you to design this custom piece for me? And that way you don't have to learn that other program. You can just get it directly from them.
Oh, okay. So they're pretty amenable to working with you in terms of?
Yeah, there's a lot of custom 3D artists out there, and I know in it's there's a few people that like Drew Witt, for example. He has a product designer he works with, and he does all his designs of his products and adapters and stuff.
I actually know who that is, but I don't think he's taking on any new customers. So
Nice.
yeah.
I did get his Festool dock holder thing to test out. I actually made a bracket for that, and that one was... He uses, I can't remember, is it a glass filled or is it a carbon fiber reinforced filament? One of the two. And I was surprised at how strong and rigid that stuff is. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Drew's stuff is pretty nice. I have a lot of the track saw stuff that he has, like the holders and the end caps and the, arbor covers and stuff. And yeah, it's good, rugged stuff. Yeah. And well-fitting, too, because a lot of stuff you buy is not well-designed and it doesn't fit
Well, yeah,
right.
because a lot of the people that don't do it very much don't understand how tolerancing works, which is an art within itself to make sure that stuff fits properly. Because well, I can just sand a little bit here and then it's fine. It's like, well, if you've got to do that on hundreds of parts, that becomes a big issue. So you just design it to be the right size,
right? Or if
every single time,
or if you're depending on the customer to do it,
yeah,
right. I mean, the thing about Drew is he owns all the tools that he makes parts for too, So
Exactly.
right, guy has like 27 track saws,
Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it.
I thought that was the lull. Alex, you're up here for what's been breaking, but what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that if Drew Witt has that many track saws, he could just make a super long, continuous ultimate track out of all of them. Just kind of like makes me think of those train sets where you've got the train tracks, and he could just go around with all of his saws through the entirety of the shop. I don't know how he'd be able to do turns, but I'm sure he'd be able to figure it out.
Well, he's got a big
3D print.
Yeah, he's got a big shop now. And the other thing too is I told him he should race them. You know what I mean? Like build a track, build an actual like Hot Wheels tracks that like fit together, and just
up the ante from the belt sander races to track saw races.
Yeah,
that'll put some hair on your chest.
Yeah, you got some.
I think this sounds like a phenomenal idea. This would be great content.
Yeah.
And OSHA approved.
Exactly.
But yeah, anyway, what stuff that I'm breaking recently, so as I've been printing a whole lot more stuff to have for sale at the farmer's market and swim meets, I've been running into more issues just because as you do more volume, you're more likely to have some of those mistakes pop up. So I've had filament get stuck in the nozzle when it's changing stuff out, and especially the silk PLA with the articulating dragons. That's probably one of your more difficult prints, because with all those organic shapes you have more overhangs, and if you have a little bit of warping, it can get up just high enough for the nozzle to hit it to go as it's going by and pop one of those pieces off, because they don't have that much of a footprint. So I had to add a brim on the bottom, which is just one layer very flat that kind of holds on to everything else, and then some additional supports on there, because some of them are advertised as printed in place, but sometimes depending on your environment, if there's a slightly different temperature, humidity in your house or shop space where that 3D printer is, sometimes it doesn't print with all of those assistance, like the brims and the supports taken away. And I've been experimenting with those cool plates as well, because there's I think it's pronounced, it's BIQU, BIQ, I can't remember. But they have a cool plate, and then I also bought the bamboo Super Tack plates, and so they have a lot more adhesion after the temperature goes down a little bit, and so you're supposed to be able to grab, and if you've got any issues with adhesion at the very beginning of your print, that's where you're going to have a lot of issues later on, because if it's not flat or whatever, it's just going to compound on that issue. So those have been working all right. I found that those cool plates aren't quite as good with like really big flat surfaces if you're printing like a big plate of some kind. Like I tried to print, it was one of those keyring holders, and it had a big wide base, and doing that on one of the cool plates, it was just having troubles warping. But when I did it with the regular PEI plate, which is like the textured one where it's set a little bit warmer, it works just fine. But you have to select in the settings if you're changing those plates. And so I've had instances where I thought that I had switched the plate, but I forgot to physically switch it or switch it on the software. So if you're printing on a higher temperature plate with the cooler temperature settings, it's not going to adhere. And then I've had a glob on the end of my print nozzle as a result. And I probably did that like 2 or 3 times this past week. And fortunately, it was like still in the print, so it was still warm, so you can just kind of pull that glob off and then wipe the nozzle off, and you're okay. But I did have one instance where I forgot to put the plate back on, and it started working on the under whatever the substrate surface is on the P1S. And so I was like, oh crap, because I could I could feel where it started to do some of the print pattern. It was still on the first layer, so fortunately it didn't do very much. But yeah, that was a very fun surprise. So yeah, as you switch and change and add more features, you're more likely to screw something up. So all that being said, overall doing just fine with those plates now. But during these market events, poor Charizard had a hell of a time. It was not this most current swim meet, but 2 swim meets ago. So we had a hell of a time because it was like 100 degrees and it was like a sustained wind of 20 miles per hour. We were getting gusts in like 40 miles per hour. Oof. Yeah, Charizard got blown off the table and his wing broke. And he was like hanging on.
Oh, not my Charizard.
Yeah, so he's like hanging on by like one strand of a filament on his wing. And so we get him brought home and we glue his wing back on. And then my son like had him out because he was like kind of trying to display him. And I can't remember if one of the dogs jumped up and then threw Charizard off the table and it broke in the same spot. So Charizard has been broken twice. So he's probably going to be a display model because he is getting quite the bit of CA glue all over the base of his wings at this point. So,
see,
but yeah,
now you need to print the what's the nurse Pokemon, whatever that one is,
Chauncey.
Yeah, you need to print that one and have it holding like a bottle of CA glue. And have it like nursing the thing, and that can be your display.
Yeah, and that was one other thing too, is that I have started taking CA glue with me for when little things break while I'm there. Because I had a couple of things that broke while I was there, because we had these were really fun, but unfortunately they were breaking. They were these little giraffes, but the neck was like a spring. So when you wobble it, the neck of the giraffe would like swing back and forth. But that joint was not quite strong enough at the very base of the neck. Or sorry, not base of the neck. That's hard to know where that is on the giraffe. But the base of the skull of the giraffe, it was liable to snap off. So I probably should have used like PETG on that, because I've just been using PLA for everything, which is not as strong, but is much easier to print. So...
see all these new terms you're going to need to learn, Lee?
I know, really. I know. I'm trying to learn all the materials right now, and yeah, everybody says PLA is what to start with, so that's what I'm going to order.
Yeah, that's the easy stuff. And as long as because if you're doing like zero clearance inserts or something that's going to be around heat, that's when you need to switch over to PETG.
Right.
And also your fill. If you need something that's stronger, you want to have a gyroid fill, which is there's like a bunch of fill options. The like regular X grid pattern is like the normal one and the fast one.
Right.
The gyroid, which is kind of like a modified honeycomb, is the one that's going to give you the most strength. It takes a little bit longer to print, but it's definitely a lot stronger.
Gotcha.
Which for these toys, like I only do 5% infill with grid because most of these are not going to need to be structural in any way.
Right.
Unless you're throwing Charizard off a cliff or something like that. Anyway,
then you could advertise it. Cliff throwing approved.
Exactly. Cliff diving Charizard. There's a tagline. But yeah, and then for myself as well, I've been getting into back into the running during the summer to prep for the cross-country season that I'm coaching, so my knee has been having some issues. So I haven't actually broken it, but it was just like, some achy issues around the knee that I needed to be a little bit more conscious of. So I took a few days off and kind of got some of the muscles worked out. So
Old man Alex.
Yeah, well, the good thing is I've done enough running that I know how to fix most of these injuries, and if it's something that just needs worked out or it just needs time, so at this point I don't have anything to prove to anyone about trying to like go out and run a certain time. It's just like I just don't want to get injured. I just want to be able to run without getting injured. Like that's my only like objective. I'm
not a runner, and that's how I feel in
participant.
general. I want to be able to run and not get injured.
Yeah. So,
Lee, have you
that's
broken
what
anything
I've
in your
been
shop?
breaking recently.
Like recently?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Other
you
than
ever-
breaking into a bottle of wine.
have you ever had a friend or known a person that can break stuff just by looking at it?
My son.
My sister.
Okay. Yeah, my sister. All right. So, my sister stayed at my house for a couple of weeks while I was traveling recently, and she's the kind of person. This doesn't happen at her house, but whenever she visits me, things just mysteriously break. And when I came back, this was after 2 weeks, all 3 of the entrance doors in my house were broken. The doorknobs were broken.
The doorknobs were broken?
The door latches. The door latch was stuck on my back door. The door latch was stuck open. The door latch was stuck closed to the garage door, or the door between the house and the garage. And then on the front door, the key wouldn't turn anymore. So the latch
Is she like She-Hulking each knob, trying to open it?
No, I don't know. But I had to use the deadbolts to lock everything, right? And so, yeah, so finally this past weekend, I just broke down and bought a bunch of lock parts from Home Depot. They're all quick set, so it's pretty easy, right? It's an easy lock to work on. And and I just went through and replaced three latch guts. Yeah.
I have to admit, one of our door handles for the back door, the dogs like jump on it all the time, so we lock it to get inside, and they broke it, and I just took it out and left it like that, and it's been like that for like a month now. Because it's just been an open hole.
Hole.
I just left it. So
Do you have a screen door? Does can buzz?
Yeah, there's a
critters?
screen door.
Okay, so critters.
Yeah,
can
there's
get
a
in,
secondary door, so that's why I'm not like so hell bent on replacing it. It's like it's to the back door. It's fine. I don't care.
Right, so you just stick your fingers in and just open it and close it like that.
Well, being the problem solver that I am, I put masking tape over it so that like the heat wouldn't come through. So I grab on the deadbolt latch and pull on that to open it.
Any burglar who lives near Alex
is going to be so confused.
Woo! Yeah. But my sister though, and this was just this time. Like I say, other times, toilets break, appliances break. Yeah, you name it.
I ripped off my microwave handle 2 months ago. That was interesting. I glued that back with Gorilla Glue, and it's been fine ever since. So,
Interestingly enough, I looked into this. Gorilla Glue doesn't have any gorillas in it at all.
I know, it's kind of disappointing.
It is. There are no gorillas who are employees or stockholders of the company. I don't understand really what it has to do with gorillas. It's not an ingredient.
First Harambe, now this.
Exactly.
And it's not
it'll be like B-movie all over again.
they don't actually have any stronger of like a hold than anything else. If anything, it should be called like alligator jaw glue, or alligator glue or something like that has clamping power.
Exactly. But, there you go. Right.
Yeah. Well, for me, what I've been breaking this week was my immune system. For our listeners, you guys know I was out, or we didn't have a show last week, and that was because I luckily had the flu, and it was nasty and icky, and yeah, I hated every moment of it. So I didn't get into the shop really at all this week, or all last week, and only recently have gotten back into the shop this week. But yeah, so my immune system is what was broken all last week.
Shut up and take my money.
And Lee's getting treated to all the sound effects here. So moving on to what we're selling. So for me, again, because I was sick, I wasn't really doing much. I did restock my retail store, or one of my retail store partners down in Astoria, Oregon, which I did a couple of days ago, which was really good. I was like getting, especially this time of year when all the people are out to the beach and vacationing and buying stuff, I get a nice bigger check every month than normal, which is nice.
Now, do they order stuff, or do you just go down and like? Is it like the bread guy at the grocery store? You just go in.
It's
and
kind of like the bread guy. Like I just show up with a box of stuff and put it on the shelf.
Okay, right.
She, the woman who runs the store, her name is Naomi. She was the very first person to take kind of a chance on me when I started woodworking, and I was like, "Hey, if you're interested, I'd love to have some stuff in your store." And we had known her because she's an artist as well, a stained glass artist. I had commissioned her for a piece in the past, so we had a relationship. And she's like, "Yeah, let's give it a shot." And things, as I continued to grow with my quality and stuff, things continued to sell more and more. And I was talking to her about a month ago, and she said continuously for the last year, I'm the top seller month over month continuously in her store. So.
Very nice.
Yeah, so she really has no restrictions of what I can bring. It's just, if it fits on the shelf, it can go. So
all right.
Yeah, so it's good. So I've been doing that, and then oddly enough, I think it's mainly because summer has kicked in, people are out and have some time off, and maybe because the economy is not great, people aren't traveling as much. But my Etsy store for my CNC files has blown up since June 1st. Like I did 3 times May and April's amount in June so far. And I just think people are not traveling, so they're staying home and they're doing projects. So they're buying the CNC files for their projects they're doing.
Now, let me ask you a question, because I don't do a lot of the selling stuff. I never have, as far as like the crafts and stuff. Do you find like certain things, because it's not like down here, down here, the weather is kind of pretty consistent. There's not much of a winter. But do you find like stuff is seasonal? Like you sell different things in the summer than in the winter? Or
yeah, definitely during local markets. I definitely do.
Right.
Online, no, it's pretty much standard all the way around, except some of my Christmas CNC files I get during September, October, November, as the lead up to production for those. I get a whole bunch of those sales. But
yes, you lead into the holiday stuff and all that, obviously.
I do a little bit, not so much at my retail stores or at my farmers markets that I do. Right. But online, I'll do some holiday stuff.
I can imagine, because I mean, if you get stuck with that stuff, you got to hold on to it for a year. Right?
And I did that the first couple of years. That when I was selling, I made a whole bunch of Santa, like walnut Santa trays and snowmen and these stop signs that say Santa stop here. Right. I made like 50 of each of them my first year, and I still have a bunch of them. And I'm like, like today, somebody was in my shop, came over and hung out, and I was like, "Hey, he was looking at my stuff, and he's like, "Oh, that's cool." He made a comment on the stop sign. I was like, "Do you want it? Because it's gonna get burnt. I'm done with keeping it."
Or you can do what Randy did and do a post where you're like, "My worst sellers ever," and use that as a spot to advertise what you've got.
Hey, I bought one of those stickers because I thought that sticker she was talking about was hysterical. So,
the sanding sticker.
I
thought you were going to say that you bought the footstool, which I find hilarious.
No, the footstool's hysterical. I did buy the 3D plans for her pop-up table that she has. It's a 3-level pop-up table, which I thought would work really great as a display item at a market to display different products on.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's what I've been selling. Lee, do you sell anything at all?
My soul.
Your soul? I mean, you've been focused on videos.
Yeah. So, no, I haven't really. I mean, I don't take that many commissions anymore. Occasionally, there's a few people I work with, like designers and stuff, but not. I mean, I don't just like, these are people that I know that I've worked with for a while, and if they have something, I'll work them in, but I don't just like take commissions from the public. I don't make stuff to sell. I don't have an inventory. I don't like go out and make 50 planters and put them on Facebook Marketplace. I don't do anything.
It must be hard when you're out in public and people recognize you. No photos, please. No photos, please. Right?
He doesn't want to deal with the little people.
I have, you know what? This is interesting because, I mean, if you go to like the Texas Woodworking Festival or something, we should talk about that, by the way. But
we will.
If you go to the Texas Woodworking Festival, you're going to get recognized because that's your demographic, right? But I was recognized in public once at a grocery store. Some guy walked up to me and said, "Aren't you the guy on the busted knuckle guy?" Yeah. Can we take a selfie? I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's so cool.
That was the funniest thing ever.
I actually have you beat. I've been recognized once as well, but only from one video I ever did, which was the very first video I ever did, which was a sanding mask review. And the guy's like, "Oh, aren't you the nano mask guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So,
how did you recognize me? I was wearing a mask the whole time.
It was weird.
Yeah. Well, and like I say, the guy. If I walk into like a Home Depot or a Rockler or something, that's common. But like at a grocery store, I just wasn't expecting it. And I wasn't prepared either. Believe me, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I was like, in no mood to be taking selfies. But
I don't get
recognized.
No, not really. I don't. I'm not YouTube famous like you guys. although I've been called the tracksuit guy or like the singlet guy. So I might have to lean into that a little bit more in the future.
Oh yeah, especially the singlet thing. That's working for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it still fits. It's from college and it still fits. Really tight, but it fits.
I mean, I was at Workbench Con. I mean, fits is kind of a relative term when we're talking.
That's what I was going to say.
Like I said, it was snug.
It did not leave anything to the imagination.
Right. It didn't split apart. So I guess that you could define that as fitting.
And I had full range of motion, as you could see in the video.
Yes, full range. You guys, whoever's watching this has to look this video up because it's Alex in a singlet with full range of motion. That's all I'll say.
Yeah,
I will actually put a little clip on the video on our YouTube here.
Oh God. Yeah, make sure and be in incognito mode when you watch that because you're not going to want to have any evidence that you saw that.
End up on a watch list or something.
Probably.
It's a no-fly list.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
Alex, how's your market's been going?
It's been going all right. So I'll go in chronological order. So we had our first farmers market 2 weeks ago, and that was okay. Like, it's the first time that you're there. It's still kind of early on in the season. It was still pretty hot then. And we got a few sales and a few requests for some keychains because one of my plans had worked with printing off some car logos because I only had time to print off like one of each of a couple of things to basically show and get people's imagination going. So a guy saw one of the it was like a Ford keychain that I made. He's like, "Oh, could you do like a Harley Davidson and an Indian Motorcycles one?" I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." So I got a couple requests from him, and then a couple of kids buying some articulated toys. And this is one thing that I have learned to do is like asking people, especially if they are a recurring customer, about things that they would like to see. Because like with that Harley Davidson guy, like knowing that it was like Indian motorcycles, you kind of and Harley, like you get your ideas flowing of a couple of other things that you can add to the list that they are thinking about but didn't realize could be a thing that they could buy.
That is something that I really recommend every maker do, especially if you start seeing somebody purchase over and again. It's something I've always taken to heart at my markets. We have a gal, her name's Laura. She's my number one fan as far as my woodworking, and I always ask her, like, hey, what do you want to see? Because you bought pretty much one of everything I make. What else do you want to see? Because one, it's that special relationship you've created, but two, they're definitely your demographic and they know what they want. So
yeah,
something that's really important.
I definitely make sure that the people who have actually bought stuff, their opinion is weighted much more on input than someone who has not purchased anything. Because you get people all the time where it's like, oh, you should make this thing and sell it. People would buy it, and it's like, well, that's kind of
But would you buy it?
Exactly. Yeah, that's
exactly.
People have ideas, well, the phrase that I always find the most dangerous is when people say, you know, what would be cool would be, and then insert whatever idea, because even though it's cool, it may not sell. So that's why talking and asking questions is going to get you so much further, because instead of guessing on what people want, you can just ask them to tell you what they want. And that's going to say, like, instead of just throwing ideas out there and making stuff and dealing with even more, you know, inventory that doesn't turn over, you're more likely to sell it quickly as well. Which is, you know, I've got one kid that loves buying Pokemon stuff that I have asked him, you know, like, oh, what's your favorite Pokemon? And he told me a couple things, and so I printed stuff that were some of their favorites, and so I've sold a few to them, which is kind of leans me into that swim meet, because that's where that person was at this this swim meet. So for Lee, who is hearing about this, so my son, who's 9, competes at swim meets, and we started selling 3D prints there because kids are basically that captive audience there for like however many, like 8 hours, and they're like at a water park and there's nothing to do.
Right.
So I'm just like, all right, well, we'll just set it up, because it's like, you know, you do your event for like a minute or two, and then it's like another hour or two until the next event. So it's like, well, might as well sell a few things.
Yeah.
So at this last
the
event,
other parents love him.
They don't give you a hard time. I mean, if I try to do that around here, the first thing I'd hear was, like, the organizers of the event, well, where's our cut?
This one, I think it's because I do it with my son, because he actually he likes taking the supports off, and he's kind of there with me, so it's kind of like with him. So It's not like I'm just some random guy showing up at this swim meet. Like, I have a reason to be there.
Okay.
I mean, it's still not, you know, within a school, so there's no, you know, restraining order there.
Who's the blonde guy with all the fidgety things? What's going on with that guy?
I saw him roll out of a van. It's, you know, it's weird.
No windows.
He's got a candy sign.
Yeah. So one thing that I actually do to not annoy the parents that are there is I don't do anything that, like, kids are going to hurt themselves or be obnoxious with. So I don't do the collapsible swords, or any, like, projectiles that, like, shoot anything or anything like that. So I try to be a little bit strategic to, like, keep it from garnering bad attention. So it's like, even though I know I can sell a bunch of those collapsible swords, it's like, I don't want backlash from the parents, so I'm just gonna not do that. So I stick mostly with fidgets and Pokemon and other stuff.
Yeah. 20% off guns and knives. No, they don't do that.
On your last one that you ever going to go to, so like when your son is done and you're not going to do this ever again, 3D print a bunch of whistles and give them out for free.
Oh my gosh.
And just watch the pandemonium happen for the swim meets.
No, what I should do is I should 3D print a bunch of recorders and give them out for free.
Oh yeah,
because it's even worse than loud noises or out of tune loud noises.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then just drop the mic and walk out.
Exactly. Yeah. So this was the show that I'm talking about. It was the one where it was like 100 degrees and like 20-mile-per-hour wind with like 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So I had learned from the last couple of swim meets to be close to the pool where the kids are walking in and out, because the kids' foot traffic is the one that garners the most attention, or the ones who are like asking their parents for money and stuff. So I occasionally get some parents that'll buy some stuff as well, but it's mainly the kids.
How old are these kids? About your son's age, 9?
Yeah, a majority of them are probably around, 9 or 10, but they do go up to high school age, but there are not very many high school kids. So it's mainly like elementary school age kids and some middle school, and then a handful of like high school kids.
I had no money when I was that age. I mean, no money. Zero money.
Well, that's why they always go and ask their parents. So
that's why I said the parents love Alex.
I didn't get an allowance either. My allowance was, we let you live here.
yeah. Yep. My mother-in-law did say I'm like the shelves at the end of the grocery store is what I'm the equivalent of.
That was not a compliment.
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't.
Yeah, kind of, but like I'm not trying to be
that was
facetious
passive
anyway.
Aggressive. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, they call those end caps. That's where they put all the stuff.
Yeah.
Trying to really hawk really hard. Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, we were out there and it's super hot, and it's easy to get that spot because obviously no one else is really setting up to sell there, and we put up our canopy there, and usually no one tries to go into those spots because usually there isn't a bunch of tree cover, so it's easy to kind of get in that spot. Plus, I'm close by the pool where I can see my son compete. Like, it's only like 10 steps away to like go watch him actually do something. So finding the time to step away from the table is very easy to watch him compete when he needs to. So that was all just fine. And then we had the wind whip up one time where it just took everything off of the table and it just went like 10 feet. And then my wife was like, we're done. We're putting this stuff away. Because like she'd been like wanting to do, wanted us to like pack up earlier than that because she like doesn't really want to do any of that stuff. And
so, not to mention the other parents hate you, but your wife hates you too.
Exactly.
Well, my mother-in-law was the one who said like the end cap comment.
Yeah.
That was my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
No, it was meant to be like playful. Anyway, the fortunately our tent or our canopy didn't break. So when we had put it down, I had still I like to keep it up because there are kids like wanted to come by to get stuff later. So I wanted to make sure that I had stuff out. So I'd like move the table over and we had taken the canopy down. And as we were sitting there, someone else's tent, it basically flipped over on itself. And accordioned and was broken. It was that windy. It was we're talking something that has stakes as well as stringers with stakes that got pulled out of the ground. So yeah, those broke as well. And I also had when I put stuff out on the table, because I was like, okay, if it's going to be windy and stuff blows over, I'll just keep it in the containers. Well, with it being 100 degrees and clear cases, some of my PLA prints are in there were starting to warp as well that I had found out. So I had to throw out a few of those pieces because they had warped, where they basically especially the fidgets that couldn't move anymore because they had warped enough. But then basically the second time around on all this stuff, it was basically rinse and repeat. Better weather. Did a lot better with both the farmers market and it was the last swim meet of the year this past Saturday. So those ones we did really, really well, selling a lot of dragons, a lot of Pokemon cards, because those were ones that I had printed that the kids really liked. Because you can print a super ultra rare or awesome Pokemon card and just keep on printing it, and the kids love that stuff because it's it's got all the cool stats and everything on it that are really awesome. And I'm actually gonna play around with some silk PLA to see if I can get some holographic effects on some of them too, because I think that would be kind of fun to kind of match that holographic. I don't want to say texture, but that foil look to it, so it looks like some of those rare shiny versions of the Pokemon cards, because kids love collecting all of them. So. And I also got...
How old of a guy are you, Alex?
I am... Let me do the math real quick. 33. I grew up loving Pokemon, by the way.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
it's
barely a kid
like
yourself. I was just kind of wondering. Yeah, you're about the age.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is that I like making stuff for franchises that I understand. Because for me, like, I understand Pokemon. Like, I understand things to print, and I understand, even though they've like expanded it exponentially since I've really played it a bunch.
Yeah,
because like, there was one thing.
You're exactly the same age as my son, and he loves Pokemon too. And whenever I travel, I always get Pokemon from the native area. Like, I got a bunch. I was in Rome a few months ago, and I got a bunch of Italian Pokemon, and I've gotten them French.
So instead
Pokemon
of a Pokeball, you got a Popeball.
There you go. Yes. Yeah.
Just don't let
exactly.
JD Vance near it.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard that Lee was one of the guys that got a vote on the new Pope because he was there during that time frame.
I was actually there. Not planned. Didn't plan for the Pope to die. You know.
Well,
I had made.
I don't think a lot of people planned for the Pope to die.
Right, but it
JD
wasn't
Vance
like,
did.
I mean, no. Well, maybe he did. Who knows? But it wasn't like a thing. Oh, the Pope died. I have to rush to Rome. You know, I was going there anyway. But
Coincidence? I think not. Illuminati.
Reason for travel. Pope.
Really? What's going on with the Pope? I made this trip 2 months in advance. No, but
you went and saw the white smoke and everything, right?
I did because I happened to be in St. Peter's Square at the time the election took place, and it was only the second day of the conclave, and they never, ever elect a pope on the second day of a conclave. So we were expecting to see black smoke. So we went, and okay, I'll tell you a little funny story real quick. So we went, and it was the white smoke. And of course, we're there in St. Peter's Square, and it is packed. It is like wall to wall people. And there's a lot of clergy in the crowd, right? So there were like 3 nuns, old nuns, right in front of us, and there were a couple of priests here and there, and there were nuns and so forth.
So much potential for jokes, by the way.
3 nuns walking to the St. Peter's Square. No. So anyway, of course, we're all sitting there, and quite frankly, it was about 7:20. The voting took place at 7 o'clock, right? And usually, because the conclave ends at 6 every day. And so we were expecting to eventually see black smoke, but the night before I had heard that the black smoke didn't go up until 9:30 at night. So we were like, oh, this could take hours, right? And so we see the white smoke, and then all of a sudden people are like cheering, ah! And they're like it's pandemonium. It is pandemonium, right? But nobody knows who it is, okay? So there are people in the crowd that have phones, and they're watching the CNN International, right? And about 5 minutes later, they announced it was an American, and you could literally hear the whole crowd go, ah.
Oh, my God.
And the 3 nuns in front of us, they started speaking in Italian, and they were looking at somebody's phone, and they just went, and they just turned around and just
Wow.
They turned around and just walked away, like just totally dejected. Oh my God! You never saw 20,000 people's mood change like that.
I was not rooting for him. I was rooting for Pizza Balle. I wanted him because I wanted him not to change his name because we need a Pope Pizza Balle.
Love it. We have a Pope named Bob now. Hey.
Yeah, King Bob, now we got Pope Bob.
Exactly. Yeah.
I always feel like somebody's watching me.
All right. So this week in our maker community, I have a few people here I wanted to highlight. First of all, Cody over at Cadence Manufacturing. He is the guy who makes the Jenny bits for CNCs. A good guy, a good friend of mine, and he just announced his next 2 new bits that he's releasing. The Molly mills. It's the first non-Jenny line, but they're an 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch drill bit. So I'm super excited to give these a try. I use an 1/8 inch bit for all my cribbage boards, so I'm really excited to test this one out to see how they do. But I was excited to see him make those. Nick over at Nick's Custom Woodworks. You'll find him over on Instagram and on YouTube. He made a bench for his work table out of blackjack oak. And I had never heard of this style of oak before. It's in the red oak family, but its grain has a lot more like black streaks in it. And then it's a short oak, so it has tons of knots in it from all the lower branches. So it's mostly used actually as firewood and smoking chips because it's super dense, so it burns really hot. But he had a slab of it, and so he used it as just a rustic slab on his workbench. And man, it was really cool. I love the look of it. It's not as red as red oak. It's not as white as white oak. It's somewhere in between, but it has just knots everywhere because of all the lower branches and with how short the tree is. Have you guys either worked with or heard of blackjack oak before?
Heard of
No,
it.
I've not.
Haven't actually worked with it. No.
Yeah, it's a southern United States area, southern and eastern.
Okay.
So I was wondering if you had. Moving along, do you guys remember the old Super Bowl commercial that was the Bud Light "What's up" from the 90s?
That's old.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it's not.
I remember that one.
Old. It's still 25 years ago.
Right. Wow. I know. Time flies, doesn't it?
It does. Well, anyways, Kamani, Luke, Justin, Ben, Dave, and another Lee, all different makers throughout the community, got together and they did a woodworking version of this commercial. So go look up Van Stray Studios on Instagram. That's Kamani, and you can see everybody in this reel. And it's the audio from the Bud Light commercial, but as they're all in their shop and calling each other from their woodworking shop, doing the "What's up."
Okay.
It's stupid, it's hysterical, and I love when makers get together to do something just fun like that.
That is cool.
John, and I'm sorry, John, I'm gonna butcher your last name. It's Kipoff, Kuiphoff. He's over on YouTube, and I do not know how this man has less than 5,000 subscribers. He did a video that he spent a year on creating all about CNC, and it's basically the ABCs of CNC, where he literally makes a letter, and every letter he makes a different it's either highlighting a different feature, a different type of material you can use, a different function, a different type of carve. It's just super. It's seriously a masterclass for video. There's so much, or for CNC videos. There's so much in it. I wish I had known. And I actually was sitting there as I was watching it. I was making notes of like, oh, I think this would be great to do my own version of something of this letter of, because he was using a type of material that's multicolored in layers. I'm like, oh, I could do like a rainbow carving. And so I was just doing a whole bunch of notes as I was watching his video because it's such a good video.
Well, he only I'm looking at his channel right now. He only has 24 videos. That may be why he only has about 10K subs. But
he's gone up. When I did it, he only had about 5. So he's gaining quick.
Well,
that last video though is great.
Did he set it to Michael Jackson singing the ABCs? The young Michael Jackson?
But it was super well done. And then the last person I wanted to highlight was Brandy over at Handy Dandy Brandy. We talked about her a little earlier. She did a shop tour on Instagram. It's a 7-minute reel on Instagram. Her shop is one of the best shops I've seen. It is a bigger space. It's a commercial space, but she has packed in so much, and she's made it her shop into these little zones. And so as she walks you around, like, this is the zone for my table saw. This is the zone that I do all my routering in, and then this is the zone where I do my inlays in. And so, like, each area has a specific function, and it's kind of like a maze as she was walking around. So I was really impressed.
How big of a shop is it?
I don't remember if she said, but I don't think it didn't look more than 2,000 or maybe 3,000 square feet.
Oh, so that's a good sized shop. It's not like a garage, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like you said, it is a commercial shop.
Right. Okay.
But she's got 2 CNCs. She's got all the stuff in there. I think she said she has 7 lasers in there. Like there's quite a bit, and if you've seen her work, it's incredible. So I was really impressed with that layout.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's who I wanted to highlight. Lee, did you have anybody that you'd seen this week or wanted to mention?
Yeah. So,
You can say hi to your mom too.
Oh,
yeah,
my mom. I would have to say it pretty loud since she's been dead for a few years, but
We'll get out the Ouija board from Justin Maybe.
there you go.
Sorry, the
Thank you.
sparkling Ouija board.
Hi, Mom. So, one of my favorite, this is nobody who was like obscure or anything, but one of my favorite makers did put out a video this past week, 3x3 Tamar. So you got to shout that out. I mean, everybody probably knows who she is and that she put out a video, but it's a really, really good one. It's about, she made a really kind of very interesting cabinet that looks exactly like solid walnut, except it's just a veneer. So she talks about how to, she ended up, making $300 or $400 worth of wood look like $4,000 worth of wood, right? So, and she's just so talented. One of the things I really like about her is that she's very brave in that she doesn't shy away from talking about her political views on her socials, which I find interesting because I know a lot of people are scared of doing that, myself included, quite frankly. I know Alex Duffy over here doesn't make any secret of his political leanings either, but
I don't anymore. I did used to, and this last 6 months has been rough.
Right, exactly. But I've talked to her about it, and she has lost a lot of followers from it, but she doesn't care, and I say more power to you. That's what it's for, So.
Well, yeah, and if your follower base is like much more in line with who you are, it's a much stronger, more representative follower base anyway. Because if you're just going off of pure numbers, like, well, how many of those are bots and weird things? Like, everyone gets like bots and the hot singles in their area. At least I do. I don't know about you guys, but
I don't really get ads about hot singles in my area because I am one of the hot singles in this area.
So they're trying to get you on the platform.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to hire.
It.
They're trying to hire me. Yeah. So anyway, a couple others I want to mention. So, Dinkle's Wood Shop, who I've talked about before. I've talked about her when I had a podcast. She actually did a couple of. She's a video editor by day. She actually did a couple of animations for my last video. She does some work on my channel sometimes, on my YouTube channel. But she's also a very accomplished woodworker. And she had been off of YouTube for a while, but she recently put out a 12 video series on stick chair building. That's great. Really, really good. If you're interested in that, which is really an art and a skill in and of itself, Dinkle's Wood Shop, definitely go check her out. Check out all of her videos. She's really, really funny. She's got a very quirky, strange sense of humor, which I love. She's just right there, go subscribe. She's perfect. And there's one other channel I want to mention. So there's a channel called Jesper Makes. It's called Jesper, and he's from Denmark, so Copenhagen. So Jesper is the way you pronounce it, and it's Jesper Makes, and his channel has almost, it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of subs.
Almost 300.
Yeah. But he has a second channel that is not well known. It's called In the Rough. And basically on that channel, it's not really like his first channel, where his first channel is more instructional. This, like, for example, perfect example, his last video on In the Rough was he builds a 500-year-old, he builds a door, basically a 500-year-old design, a medieval door, and he starts from cutting down the tree to all the way to the end. So he mills the logs, everything. And there's no talking, just building his ass off in this video. And all the stuff on In the Rough is like that. And it's really, really, really good. So definitely check that out. I will tell you guys, I think I might have mentioned this at Workbench Con when I gave my talk. I don't watch very much woodworking content on YouTube anymore. Quite frankly, I may get in trouble for saying this, but a lot of it is dreck. I was listening. I was listening. You guys know who Frank Zappa is, right? He was a kind of a famous rock musician back in the 70s and early 80s.
Sure.
And I was listening to an old interview of his, and they asked him, what other rock musicians do you listen to? And he's like, I listen to Bulgarian folk music and Stravinsky. He goes, I don't listen to any of this other crap that's on the radio. He goes, it's all dreck. And I kind of feel a little bit like that with woodworking content. Most of it is pretty bad.
Well, I think that also
accepted, of course.
Right. I do have to say, I think that comes with the territory of being a content creator. Because before doing content creation, I took in all of the content I could find around woodworking and stuff. And now there's definitely some names, and I'm not going to mention them, but there are definitely some that I can't stand watching anymore, because the content it's not the kind of content I want to make, and it's not the kind of content I think that should be made for woodworking. And so I'm just like, and so I don't watch it. And so, but I definitely see that, because you know how the sausage is made type of kid.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. Now, I've talked about this in the past before too. I do have my hate watches, right? Channels that are so horrible that you just watch them just because they're so hateable.
That's my channel.
But there's some kind of like a short. No. There's some kind of like a Schadenfreude with it. You know what I mean? It's just like cathartic. You just watch it and you just go like, and you just get so mad at the end. You just feel better.
So that's why I watch Fail Army. Like, it's the worst of humanity, and yet I can't look away.
Right. And that's why I watch Whitworks. He's one of them. So, yeah.
Alex, who you been watching this week?
Let's see. So the first one that I've got is Jennifer over at Elegant Quirk on Instagram. So she made this really beautiful Intarsia piece of Mirabelle from Encanto, and I really love it because you can see the motion in it. It's very tough to get pieces that people make that you can feel the motion of it. And she had the butterflies in there because that's part of the movie. And she actually, I believe they raffled it off for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So that went to a good cause as well. So it was nice seeing not only a piece that I believe was inspired by one of the Make-A-Wish kids, but also going towards a charitable organization like that. And then the next one that I have, so this one was apparently kind of like a little bit of a collaboration. So, because I think it was one of those scenarios where it was there was the builder, and then there was a furniture maker, another person involved. So what they did was they took because I haven't seen it before. I'm sure it's possibly done before, but it's the first time I've seen it, where someone took and made a cover for the door of the dishwasher, and it looks like these really nice dovetailed oak drawers. So when you close it, it just looks like it's going to be drawers, but then when you open it, you obviously see the dishwasher inside.
So like a hidden refrigerator type door.
Yeah. People do it more so with refrigerators. I've seen that done before, but I hadn't seen someone do that with this one. So it was made out of white oak.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's
so it was
cool idea, actually.
Kidwell Fabrications, Block Brothers CC, Witten Architects, and Bowley Builders. So I don't know like the coordination of who all, because I know that Kidwell did they did like the handle pole that was on there, but the rest of the stuff I was unsure of what pieces each one's did, because maybe someone made it off-site and then the builder or whoever installed it, and then the architect was the one who had the design or whatever. So a little bit of a collaboration.
Before I did YouTube, that was the kind of stuff I did, right? Like a designer would come in and they'd want something that would be impossible to buy off the shelf. Like, I want a cover for this dishwasher door. It would be some really obscure thing, and you just kind of figure it out. It's not like it's not like you can just look up.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, a lot of things where you just can't find a video on YouTube on how to make a dishwasher door. So
right.
Yeah. But that's
in
good
those
money.
type of doors, especially the refrigerator ones. I don't understand, and maybe it's because I want to know where the appliances are in a kitchen when I go there. And are you kind of a sadist? Are you hoping that you're confusing people as much as possible, or why do you want to hide the appliance?
Some people now the big thing is now the big thing is fridgescaping. Have you seen that? Where they
Yes.
You open it up and they've got the display on the inside of stuff and things. It's that's peak middle-aged white woman stuff.
Yeah, that's Karen stuff. But there depends on the designer, right? Like a lot of these builders, they work with designers, or the designers work with a builder, and these are people who have money, Alex. Okay, big.
Oh yeah, I've had
money.
clients like this before.
Yeah, I mean, to them, they're spending maybe $3, $4, $5 million on a remodel, a whole house remodel, right? So they're getting the whole kitchen done from scratch, and they want it exactly the way they want it, and they're going to change their mind three or four times.
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
And this is why I don't do that style of woodworking. I don't want to deal with those people.
But it's great money, though. But it is a pain, because some people you just can't please. Yeah. So anyway,
the next one that I've been watching, I've mentioned Albert on here a couple of times before. So Albert Klein, he has been doing a lot of marquetry inlay on some high vices. So I think those are using the bench-crafted high vice hardware, if I remember correctly. And he actually did do one with a space theme on there, so it's a little bit on brand for Mr. Duffy.
Are you talking about Andrew Klein?
Albert Klein.
Albert Klein.
Oh, Albert Klein. Okay, because
he's on the East Coast. He does a lot of marquetry stuff and a lot of hand tool stuff. He's very, very talented.
All right, because Andrew Klein is big in vices and stuff, but never mind.
No, yeah, I could see the confusion. Yeah, Andy's got good vices as well. But yeah, this is Albert A. Klein on Instagram.
Cool.
But yeah, and then the last one that I've got, another repeat person. So Danny over at Upper Room Creations did one of those kind of reintroduction posts where he had a few items that he's made, and it's good to have those reintroduction ones, because you get new people coming in who haven't seen your content from the very beginning. So he had these beautiful signs that he had that were one was Beauty and the Beast, and then the other one was The Little Mermaid, and they were I just love how they turned out. They were nice and big. They were probably 4 or 5 feet wide, something like that. Really, really large pieces. So those were, I don't know when he made those, but they were on that post, and I thought they were really awesome. So that's all I've got for who I've been watching.
Summarize it in one word.
So this week's main topic is all about buying tools, new and used. I started my shop and still to this day regularly buy used tools, especially from Facebook Marketplace. I always like to say, just because it's used doesn't mean it's bad. However, there are definitely some tool brands that I would not buy used. So, for example, I would never buy a Ryobi or Craftsman tool used and decide, that's good. But I have
So hard is okay.
Yeah, or that. But like I've bought Jet and I've bought Powermatic used, and because those are, you're talking reputable brands that make tools to last, and so that's really what you're looking for, are tools that are going to last and have good reviews and have, especially if you're talking older tools like from the 40s and 50s, tools that have replacement parts that you can still get today.
Now there are some brands that have that reputation, made to last, that aren't so made to last anymore, right? Like a perfect example is Grizzly. Grizzly used to be like a huge brand in this industry. It's junk now.
Yeah, a lot of the newest stuff. They've replaced a lot of metal with plastic over the years, and it has definitely gotten quality-wise has gone down quite a bit.
Right, exactly. So, where I might have purchased a used Grizzly bandsaw 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I'm not too sure I would now. So yeah, you got to be kind of careful about that. And Craftsman is the same way, right? When Craftsman was Sears, it was, my uncle found, they used to replace, it was a lifetime guarantee. They would replace tools without a receipt, no questions asked. He found a whole set of wrenches in the junkyard that was all rusty, brought them into Sears, dropped them on the counter. He walked out with a brand new set of wrenches, right? Ooh. So, yeah.
This is why Sears went out of business.
Exactly. Probably one of the reasons. But yeah. So, Porter Cable is another great example. Porter Cable was a great American company, and now Porter Cable is really just a name, right? That they slap on tools from Taiwan. If you're lucky, it's from Taiwan. So, yeah.
Yeah, there are definitely tool manufacturers that I feel have gone that way recently. And Jet is still a good manufacturer. However, some of their latest tools haven't been as great. I have their 10-inch drum sander, and it definitely has some things that could be strengthened up a bit and made a lot more more bulky, not as cheap as they are. I've heard that from a lot of people who are specifically just Jet users, that the last 15 or 20 years or so, their quality has also gone down a bit as well.
Yeah, they're
definitely a brand I would buy used.
Yeah, they're all looking for, ways to cut corners and ways to make it cheaper and lighter. They have to ship it all the way from, overseas most of the time, because they don't make that stuff here anymore. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm also a huge fan of the and it sounds cheesy, I know, but it's that saying that everyone says, cry once, buy once. And I say it, I don't necessarily always follow it. Ask me how many lathes I've owned. Yeah. And it's mainly because I get so excited about a tool, and I'm like, oh, I can make this $100 version work, so I don't have to buy the $1,000 version right now. And so I find that but it is a very true statement of buy once, cry once, of save up for the tool that is going to fit your workflow and the best quality tool that you're going to get that you can grow into as well. I always like to remind people of that too, because just because you're buying something, let's say you're deciding on a jointer and you're deciding between a 6-inch and an 8-inch, just because you only do things no bigger than 6 inches now doesn't mean in a couple of years you're going to be not doing something that you need an 8-inch jointer for.
Sure.
So I always say go one step bigger than you think you need.
Right. To me, buying tools, and not just used tools, new tools too. Buying tools is a skill, just like anything that you do in your shop, like, like milling wood or building something or designing something for a CNC or whatever. Buying tools is a skill. There's a strategy involved. First of all, if you're going to buy used, you have to know how to evaluate a tool. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about how your dad would help you buy a used car when you were a kid, right? I mean, you don't just, right?
When they walk through the house with you when you're buying a house.
Right, exactly. Yes. Right, exactly. Yeah.
You're opening up every crevice and you're looking at, is there a crack on the belt,
Yeah. I mean, I remember I bought, so I'm a guy of a certain age, right? I bought my first house. I had my first mortgage when I was 22. And I remember I looked at a house and I thought it was great. My dad showed up and he was like, see this? See that? Look at that. See that? Look at that. Did you check that? That kind of thing. And those are things you pick up with time, right? You can't just, if you're going to buy a table saw, you just can't go over to the guy's house and kick the tires, and say, whoa, looks good to me, I mean, to know how to check if the arbor is true, to know how to check just things like that, to be able to estimate how much wear there is in the motor. So in new tools too, because, there's tool companies their marketing is designed to separate you from your money. You have to remember that, not just manufacturers, but retailers like Rockler and Woodcraft, and even to some extent, the big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's. They're designed to make you buy stuff that you don't actually need, right? Like if you're buying if you want to buy a woodpecker's ruler, right? Well, I want to buy a woodpecker's ruler, but they're going to try to sell you the set of 4 rulers, right? There's a 6-inch, there's a 12-inch, and there's an 18-inch, and there's a 24-inch. Don't you want all 4? So to be able to see stuff like that and think, yeah, that's just a trick. You know what I mean? That's stuff you pick up with experience.
Yeah, especially when they're talking about features of something, and it's like, oh, it's this special coating that does blah 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 and blah blah blah. No, it's just stainless steel.
Right, exactly. Or this router bit has like a special blue coating on it, so instead of lasting 50 years, it'll last 75 years. Okay, my grandkids will be able to use it. What do I care?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so those are the things that I always recommend, especially when you're looking at tools. And also, if you're buying on Facebook Marketplace or used or something, as you said, make sure you know enough about the tool to be able to make sure everything works and is working properly when you go there. Because if you just I need a bandsaw and I'm going to go walk over to this guy's house and get a bandsaw, do you know if the guide wheels are even on it? Do you know what guide wheels are? So make sure you know what you're talking about and what you need to look for.
Right. Yeah. How much wear is on the tires, right? Because
right.
bandsaw wheels have tires. And also, I think buying used tools is a little safer if you consider yourself handy. If I were going to buy a used jointer, I'd feel pretty comfortable being able to swap out the motor on a jointer, right? If you don't, then maybe don't consider buying a used jointer, right? Because you don't want to have to buy something that, if the motor burns out, I'm just going to throw it away because I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, that
becomes a really big paperweight.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a consideration too, right? How well can you repair and maintain an older tool?
And that barrier to entry when you're buying used is so much lower than buying new.
No, of course.
Especially if you're trying to start a shop from, the ground up, like so many of us have at times when we're starting fresh in woodworking, or you want that new tool that you've never used before and stuff. It is easier to buy used and be able to go, okay, almost as a trial run evaluation. Am I actually going to use this jigsaw and have it as part of my workflow. No, okay, I'm glad I didn't spend $2,000 on the fancy one. You know,
Right. I'm really, part of my strategy is this. I completely ignore sales. If I buy something, you get signed up for that company. If I buy something at Woodpecker, you get signed up at Woodpecker's email list, and they're going to send you every other day, this one-time tool, this tools on sale, whatever. I unsubscribe immediately. I do not care. I don't buy stuff on sale. I don't buy stuff because it's on sale. I buy stuff based on need. Another great skill is to make use of a wish list. If they have, this is a great example. So, Amazon has a wish list, right? So if you want to not want to buy something, if there's something you think you might want, I don't know if I need that, but I might need it sometime. You put it in your wish list. Rockler has a wish list too, and I was actually maybe a week ago, I was looking through my Rockler wish list. I hadn't looked at it in ages, and literally, I was just scrolling through it. I'm going like, I'm so glad I didn't buy that. I'm so glad I didn't buy that. I'm so glad I didn't buy a 60-inch, drum sander. What am I thinking, right? When I first saw it, I thought, oh, I need this, right? But I didn't ever really need it. So I buy based on need, and I don't impulse buy. Those are the things that are killers. Oh, it's on sale. That's what your wife does.
I do that, but I do use the wish list for that reason, though. If I know I am going to buy a tool and I do need it at some point, I try and do the whole, especially because I grew in a family that money was not well managed. And so I specifically try to make sure that when I know I'm going to buy a tool, I need to wait a couple of weeks before I buy that tool to make sure that it is actually something I need and not what I want. And so I will throw it in that wish list.
Sure.
But what's also nice is...
I was going to say, in that time, too, you might figure out a way to do the thing you need to do with it some other way.
Exactly. Right. Or in that time, it goes on sale, and I go, ooh, now it's on sale. And Amazon notified me it's on sale. And now I'm going to buy it.
I would agree. Preparing for the impulse buy is something that I do by researching ahead of time the tools in certain categories that I need, as well as ones that I might need in the near future. If it's like an upgrade where you're like, hey, I have a 6-inch joiner and I want to go up to 8 or whatever, and you pick out the model with the specs and you do all the research ahead of time so that if a sale does come up, oh, that's not the model that I want, skip and move on. Same thing with marketplace finds, where it's like, oh, I see stuff pop up all the time, but if it's not these particular specs, then I'm not interested, because then it's a decision that I've made ahead of time, and if it doesn't line up with that, then I'm much less susceptible to that impulse buy, which I have, as Lee alluded to, I have honed my skills, as I would say, of buying tools. I've practiced well. I'm going to tell my wife that I'm practicing my tool buying skill set. It needs practice to become refined.
I like this,
and that's why I look at what it is that I'm even making to understand what my inputs are, because that will dictate a lot of what your tools that you need, and if you need something that is bigger or smaller. Because if you, and this is tough if you're just getting started out, but if you know where you're getting your inputs from, if it's raw lumber, or if you're getting something that's already planed, or if you're doing mainly stuff in plywood, starting with that and then understanding what kind of size dimensions am I working with, and then you can work from there to understand, like, okay, can I get away with a 12 or 13-inch planer, or do we need to bump up to 15 or 20 inches? Because so the lumber mill that I get a lot of my lumber from is rough sawn, and it's 14 inches wide, and most of the time I'm getting 8 or 9 quarter lumber. So a lot of times that'll fit my 13-inch jointer because I'm typically going to be shaving a little bit off the edge as I'm gluing something up. So it's okay that I've got a 13-inch planer and the material is 14 inches. And I have a benchtop joiner that's 12 inches, which is, it is a grizzly, but it does okay with what I need. It doesn't do it does the first face good. The fence on it is absolute crap, so I can't do the second face, but I usually end up using my track saw for that anyway. So that's an instance where if you upgrade one other tool, it can fill in the need for a different one. So I use my track saw a bunch for jointing that second face. And that's why
a track saw is not something you want to cheap out on. You know what I mean? You see a lot, because they've become so popular, you see a lot of them like the Krag, the Wen, the Ryobi, that are just junk. Saving a couple hundred bucks on a track saw is not worth it.
Well, and be careful too, because even some of the bigger names, so like I have Makita, and it's a good brand, but I bought the entry level one because it was the one I could afford at the time.
Right.
The problem is Makita is trying, and a lot of the big brands are trying to compete with those cheap names.
Yeah.
And so they're introducing a superly underpowered tool to get it as cheap as they can get it. So like the one I have, like I hate that track saw, and that's mainly because it's way underpowered for what it needs to be.
Well, yeah, and that's why seeing a few tool reviews from different channels is good, because you get multiple perspectives. Because like one thing that because for me on the track saw, for what I was doing, a TS75, which is the Festool track saw, it's their bigger one, made more sense because that allows me to do a full 2-inch miter cut for when I'm doing those like waterfalls. So it's like, okay, I plan on doing that. That can handle that. That's a spec that I can measure. And sometimes we get tool manufacturers that fudge numbers on like horsepowers or RPM, and sometimes you can suss that out a little bit with, reviewing some of the, or not reviewing, but looking over some of those tool reviews. And I say getting a couple of different perspectives of people who aren't just doing like an unboxing, because you're not going to get an understanding of how well it lasts. Because to make sure that you've got some features, like the unboxing part is good, but you also need to understand like the maintenance aspect of that particular tool as well, because that's going to help you understand how much am I going to have to maintain this particular tool to keep it running well. Because one other thing too is I also look at like how often I'm going to be using that tool, because like for me, like I use the sander a bunch, and I will have days where I will sand all the time. So getting something that is, a commercial level tool is going to make sense in that scenario. If I was only sanding maybe like every now and again, getting something that's more entry level I think is just fine. But if you're going to be doing something that's going to be putting hours and hours on it, that extra budget for something that's going to last, because it can dissipate that heat and it can run for hours on end, is going to make a huge difference.
Sure.
I think that is the one tool that a lot of woodworkers overlook, and they shouldn't. Your sander. And that, like, when I upgraded to the Festool sander, it was incredible, especially from a no-name sander that I had been using it and dealing with for years. And moving to that Festool, like you said, being able to sand for hours without it overheating, with proper dust collection, the amount of paper I was saving because it wasn't gumming up the paper constantly.
And your hand's not going numb.
Yeah, I was going to say that the ergonomics, especially with a sander, right? I mean,
the vibration dampening.
Yeah, it's just going to just run up your arm and make your whole arm go numb. That's no
right. Yeah, and especially with sanders too, you can like getting a quality sandpaper is going to make a big difference. Like you can get away with an entry level sander if you get good sandpaper, like something from like a 3M extractor or something along those lines. It's going to do you really, really well and make that sander do a lot better. But one area that I think, whether you go new or used on something, making sure that you've got good tools for tuning up and making sure that your tools are in alignment and are in tip-top shape. So things like
You mean tools for your tools?
yes, like layout and
For
measurement
your tools.
Right, yeah, calibration tools. Calibration tools is the category that I'm talking about here. So
That's another thing you can tell your wife. I need tools for my tools. I'm buying some tools, but I need
Yeah, my
Yo,
tool
dog,
needs
we got
this
tools
tool.
for your tools.
I hear you like
exhibit in here.
tools.
Exactly. So like squares and setup blocks for like setting things up, and especially if you need I think a straight edge, buying something new, like getting a 4-foot straight edge, like they're not very expensive, but they will help you with setting up your jointer and your planer, and it will help make them sing, whether they are a used or a new tool.
Right.
Because I've had to do some calibration on my tools from Festool on stuff where I've had to dial in the 45 miter on mine because it wasn't quite right, and I used that by making the cut and then using my layout tool that after the fact to make sure that that's like a dead nuts 45 degree, and that helped me so much on my projects. It saved me so much time. So getting because I won't buy those layout tools or calibration tools secondhand, because if I'm using that to calibrate and set up my tools, I want to know that it didn't get dropped or out of square or anything like that, so I have a truth that I can go back to.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of beginners don't realize, they think a ruler is a ruler, a square is a square, a straight edge is a straight edge. They don't realize that the cheap stuff, you can't guarantee that straight edge is straight. You can't guarantee that speed
Well,
square.
like I said, even on your premium stuff, sometimes during shipping, some stuff can go out of calibration. It
Sure.
happens.
Right, exactly. But I mean, they think, well, I'll just go buy a plastic speed square from Lowe's, and that's it. Well, you can't.
Well, even your
guarantee
tape measure,
course.
does it actually start at 0?
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And is the little tab on it really a 16th out? You know what I mean?
Right. Or more.
Right. Exactly. So, yeah. I mean, and there are certain things. You can always, like a Stanley Fat Max, right? Everybody, you can always trust a Stanley Fat Max if you're buying a tape measure, right? Or Fast Cap is another one that I really like. And if you're buying squares, a Starrett, you can always trust the Starrett, right? Or Jessam, you can always trust a Jessam. But people think, well, it's a marking tool. It's an inch is an inch is an inch, right? But you put two of them together, sometimes they're an off by 32nd, and that's a lot over a 4-foot length,
Yeah, and also the what is it? It's the little table saw gauge, the one that has the little plunger mechanism to measure very, very small changes. So there are ones like that. They come with a little setup block where you can use them to go into the miter slot and make sure that your saw blade is square, as well as you can set it up at an opposite 90 to make sure that your joiner bed is nice and flat and square.
Right.
So spending, gosh, I can't remember how much mine was. I can't remember if it was. I think it might have been from iGaging. I think it was maybe $70 or something like that.
Yeah.
But the amount of time that will save you is phenomenal, because I got that Grizzly joiner bed working just fine, because I was able to use the tool and set it up, and I took a couple hours to calibrate it, which is it's a little bit time consuming and annoying, but once you get set up and you let it sit there, it's just gonna go and go and go, and it'll save you so much time and grief later on.
Yeah, a tool like that, especially that calibration tool, I have a very similar. It's not from iGaging, but it's a good one. I paid about $100 for it to test table saw blade alignment, and again, this is something that a lot of beginners fall into. You go on Amazon, you can find a tool that looks exactly like it for $22, and it's from a company that has no vowels in its name. It looks like a cat walked across a keyboard, and that's the name of the company. You know what I mean? You don't even know what it is, right? And You know, yeah, you got to be really super careful about that because you think, oh, it looks the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah, because if you have one, and I've heard numerous people mention this, having basically one square that you buy that's from a very reputable brand,
right?
Like you had said, stare at like one that is a certain size, and then if you do buy, some cheaper squares, like I've done that, and then I compared it to the really nice one.
Right.
And it holds up to snuff, great. And then you just check that every now and again because, we drop squares. They can go out of alignment, and you just check it occasionally. Because I've got, and this is another thing too, is make sure and keep those things clean because a little drop of finish or a little drop of glue somewhere is just enough to take stuff out of alignment as well. So keeping those things clean is, that's going to be a big issue.
I could ask you guys a question. This is a real quick question. I'm talking about buying tools, and we were talking about like impulse buys and stuff. All right, raise your hand. If you don't raise your hand, I know you're lying, but raise your hand if you have at least one tool in your shop in an unopened box that you've never opened.
Just a second, let me think. I don't know if it counts as a tool, but yes.
I have to have this. And I bought it a year ago, and it's still in the box. Right? So
I think that's where Mr. Duffy's wait a couple of days scenario comes into play because I have been susceptible to that. I need to do the old freeze the credit card in a block of ice scenario to make sure I don't do stuff too quickly.
Yeah.
Well, see, or you do what I've learned to do is now as soon as it arrives, you open it and you go put it on the shelf. Doesn't mean you've ever used it.
Well,
at least it's open.
At least it's not embarrassing, right? Every time. Yeah, I remember I bought I'm going to name names. I bought a micro jig. One of those things where it's it's at an angle and it's like a setup block, but it's like a hat. It calculates
it does like the half measurement?
The half measurement. It's just a piece of junk. It isn't accurate. It needs to be made out of aluminum. It's just plastic, and it's not accurate. But anyway, I bought this thing, and every time I opened my bottom drawer of my toolbox, it was sitting there, still in the shrink wrap.
Just haunting you.
Yeah, just like, and finally I said, I'm going to take this out because I actually needed to cut a half dado, and it was just like, oh, I wish I had taken it out right away and tried it because I would have returned it, but. I'll say, if anybody from Microjig is watching, Microjig makes some great stuff. I'm a huge gripper fan. I love that thing. They make a lot of great things. That's not one of them. Sorry.
Amazon has a knockoff for the gripper now that's half the price.
Yeah, the gripper is a kind of expensive. Yeah, I wonder if you could probably 3D print a gripper, probably, right?
Easily.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Hey, another couple things. If you guys want some, maybe this is something you guys don't know. Little tricks that I've learned about being in the market for used tools. First of all, estate sales.
Yes.
Find the estate sales places, the places that do estate sales. Don't just wait for them to pop up and then just walk in. Go to the websites, sign up for their newsletters, their mailing list, and whenever there's an estate sale in your area, they'll send a list of all their sales, and you can click and basically see what they have, and if they have tools, be there right there, first thing. You know what I mean? Because that stuff goes fast. And
and some of them, if you've signed up for their email alerts, they'll let you pre-bid on them early.
Yeah, they will. Sometimes they will. Yeah. And then you can put a hold on it, then you have a certain number of hours to pay after the sale opens, right? And come pick up the stuff because they don't want it. They don't want it to sit there. They want you to get it. But estate sales, and then the other thing is Craigslist saved searches. So what I do is I have certain brands that I keywords. Festool is one, Jessam is one, Sony is one because all my camera gear is Sony for my YouTube channel. And so whenever anything with Festool or Jessam or Sony or Woodpeckers or whatever comes up within a 60-mile radius, I get an email alert or I get a pop up on my phone, and that's a really good way to catch stuff too. Yeah. If you're looking for something like you're looking for a jointer, just make a Craigslist search and save it and just put in jointer and then sign up for the email alert.
Facebook Marketplace does the same thing.
What?
Oh, okay.
Facebook Marketplace has that feature as well, that safe search feature.
Yeah. I think one thing on Marketplace though is some sellers tend to cram a bunch of junk keywords in there sometimes to get you to, you know what I mean? Like if they're selling like a craft jointer, they'll say like Festool, and they'll put that in the bottom, or they'll put in like Laguna.
Oh, I love. There's a Sawyer in our area. He is a local lumber guy for the urban area, and he posts all the time. He'll take screenshots from Facebook Marketplace, and it's like Oregon black walnut logs worth $10,000, and it's clearly red oak or cedar or something like that. And it's like definitely not walnut.
It's a litmus test for the people who don't know right off the bat, so then they can get people that don't know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing that I was going to bring up is, so we were talking about track saws there for a little bit, and so I do actually have the Festool variable track where you basically butt it up on the material and you can set the track and then it slides in on it. They've got the ones that are just like the 90 degrees version where it butts up to the material and it hooks onto the bottom of the track, so then you push it up against there and you get a 90-degree cut or something like that. You know what I'm talking about, right, Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it TSO? Is that the one you have?
Yeah, TSO has one of them. Festool's got their own variable version.
Okay.
I bought the Festool one.
Yeah.
But I have found that I have less issues and I get better results if I just mark out to a line and set my track on that line and clamp it down, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
Because you've got to make sure it's secured to the track. You've got to make sure that it's square to the material and it's covering it, so sometimes you can bump it and it not be square to the material. Whereas if you have a good layout tool, whether it's like a 45 or whatever you use for your layout lines, just following that line and putting your track on there, I get just fine 90-degree cuts off of that because I use the clamps on the underside to make sure that it's secured to the workpiece, and it does just fine. So I wouldn't bother with those jig attachment things that line up your track saw track. I think just clamping it down and following your layout line, if you've got good layout tools, works just fine. Because I use the it's a no-name brand on Amazon. It's like AKN Goes or whatever. It's basically a knockoff of woodpeckers, and they do just fine on these big 12-inch triangles. And then they've also got some of those they're the kinds that look like T-squares that have the little lips on them to keep them from teetering. And then they've got the holes in there for the pencil lines.
Yeah.
Because I have one version that I use all the time that's an 8-inch that I use a lot, and then I have a 24-inch that I only occasionally use for bigger materials.
Right.
So sometimes it is good to have a smaller version because it'll fit into those spaces. So don't always just go for the biggest thing that you can have for a layout tool, because sometimes it'll be awkward to get it to move around whatever it is you need, especially if it's a smaller piece of material. So sometimes having a 2 or a 3-inch square is good because you can manage it.
Quite frankly, if I'm reaching for a ruler, 95% of the time it's a 6-inch ruler. Or if I'm reaching for a square, it's a 6-inch square. That's it. I mean, that's all.
I have a little 8-inch right here.
Right, exactly. That's basically 90. That'll cover
8 inches above average, Alex. But anyway,
I have the just some sword T squares. Those are really nice, and
those are really nice. I do want one of those.
Yeah. But you're right though, and plus with the track saw, I guess maybe you're different, but I kind of use it to break down sheet goods, so I'm not really looking for super accuracy, but you can use it for other stuff too. Obviously you can use it in place of a table saw for a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah, I do that because I don't really have a good spot for a table saw. So that's why I put more budget into a track saw. Because I don't use a table saw. But
you don't have a table saw?
I have a table saw, but I don't use it much because it's just one of those like job site or style saws. Okay. So it's a skill saw one, and it has like the big 10-inch wheels, and it's good, but it's not as accurate in terms of like leaving a clean face. I honestly need to get, because I do have some nicer aftermarket blades. This is probably another thing, is aftermarket blades for whatever you have. For your cutting materials, you'll want to get, because the stock blades are usually just general purpose, okay, basically not good for everything, but can do everything.
Yeah, they don't give you really, really good blades, because they know 90% of people who are serious are just going to take that blade and throw it away.
So I've got because I have a forest blade for it, and I have a CMT blade,
right? And
they both give the same surface finish on it, which is not great. And I don't think it's because of the saws. I think it's just because of the saw, or sorry, it's not because of the saw blades. It's because of I don't want to say tolerancing on the arbor, but I think I need a one of those like arbor nuts that's like one of those like 6-inch diameter nuts for like stabilizing.
Yeah, maybe.
I think I need to try that on those, because I've got the nice saw blades, so it should be able to perform.
For a saw blade, you're not going to find much better than that. I mean, yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, like if I'm having a little bit of issue with that and on the CMT, which are both brands that colleagues that I know have used it and gotten good results,
yes,
I understand then that it's the saw at this stage that I need to do something to make it better. Because I did actually check it to make sure that it's square. Right. So that it's not like out of alignment. So I think it's just deflection in the blade, because it's a job site saw and the horsepower is not as much. It needs a thinner blade, and so that thinner blade is more susceptible to deflection while it's operating. So it needs I think it needs a stabilizing.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, if that's your table saw, it's good that you invested in a good track saw, because you're using it for more stuff than I'm using it for. You know what I mean? I'm just, I'll use a track saw to cut a 4x8 sheet of plywood in half most of the time, and that's about it.
Yeah, I do need to get a longer track for it, because I do have the connectors where I'll connect a 6-foot and a 4-foot piece to get about a 10-foot, which is typically that and under is what I'm cutting. And I can get a nice straight line off of it if I make sure and put my 4-foot straight edge up against that while I'm tightening down those nuts.
I don't like using a connector on those things.
Yeah, right? I don't like using it. It's more out of necessity until I can buy a full length track. Like, that's something that I think is worth upgrading. Yeah. I have to check it constantly to make sure that it's straight.
Right.
So you can do it, but it requires a lot of keeping tabs on it and putting that straight edge up on it a bunch to make sure that it stays straight.
Yeah. So if it shifts, it's gonna hang at that joint, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I can usually tell, because when they say to put those connectors in to leave a little bit of a gap between, we're talking like enough to let a little bit of light through, so you can tell when that gap changes in size that it's out of alignment. So it's pretty easy to identify that. So I've made that mistake before, where I've had like a long cut and I was like, this board is not equal width all the way across. And then I figured out that was my issue with that, so I start paying attention to it a lot more.
Those tracks are not cheap though, man. They don't give those away. Those long tracks, 120-inch tracks, are expensive.
Yeah, that's why I haven't gotten one yet. So, Festool, send me one, please.
Yeah, send Alex one. He'll pop his booty on TikTok while he's carrying it. He's He's big on the.
I'll wear some green running shorts for that.
Yeah, on the Instatalk, he's good on the Snapgrams. Come on.
Exactly.
See, I know all the social
Good news,
media.
everyone.
Oh my God.
Oh, sorry, Lee.
You're being cut off.
I thought we were at a lull again. Oh, I'm sorry. What were you saying, Lee?
No, never mind. Nothing.
He was talking about my bootyliciousness.
Exactly. Go ahead and play the sound effect again.
Good news, everyone.
Where's that from?
It's from Futurama.
Oh, right. Okay.
I love me some Futurama.
That's where a lot of our sound effects come from. So
Got it.
anyways, moving on to Maker News, just a couple of quick things before we wrap up tonight. First of all, AWFS Fair in Vegas is coming up in just 3 weeks. I am currently working on a time and a place for maybe a impromptu maker meetup, either drinks or dinner or something. So if you are interested and you've made it through this podcast, send me a message or email or call or whatever, and I can get you added to that list. And then remember, coming up in September, tickets are still on sale. The Texas Woodworking Fest, which I know Mr. Lee will be at.
I will be at. It's only like 4 miles from my house. I have no excuse. And plus, big party here after. So
Hey, there we go. I'm down for that.
Okay.
You're bringing
we
Sharpies
have
so
an
that you can
Airbnb.
sign people's chests, right, Lee?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Okay.
I have an Airbnb. We might be near neighbors. I think our Airbnb is only like two miles away. So
Oh, okay. Do you know what part of town it's in? You probably don't.
no, off the top of my head, I'll send it
All
to
right,
you.
all right. Yeah, I have a few people from coming in that are going to stay with me. So, and yeah, we'll have some fun. So it is here in Austin, Texas, 12th, 13th, and 14th. Tickets still available. The base tickets are pretty inexpensive, only $30. And then if you want to buy other modules for other seminars, I am going to go to the creator one. I did break down and buy that one.
So
And that's it. I'm not going to any of the other ones. Are you going to any of the other ones?
I am doing one of the CNC classes
Okay.
and the designing tables for profit class as well.
Cool.
And then I did also buy the after party package as well.
The right. That's going to be a good party. Now, but I think that party's only going to be like 2 hours or 3 hours, and then, like I say,
It's the after
Party at
party
Lee's
you
house.
want.
yeah, right,
Special invite.
exactly.
Use code WhatchaMakingShow to get in. There'll be a doorman.
There will be a doorman.
Yeah, he'll charge you 5% extra.
Hey, do you guys remember an old show called Mary Tyler Moore Show?
Of course.
This is Carlton, your doorman. Remember Carlton, the doorman?
Yes.
Anyway,
This is before my generation, so really before
yeah.
Alex's generation.
Sorry, but the thing about the Texas Woodworking Festival, I do want to say one more thing. It's not like bullshit speakers like at Workbench Con, because I spoke at Workbench Con. Obviously, they'll let anybody speak at Workbench Con, but these are
Wow.
actual real super experts, especially the ones that are teaching the woodworking stuff. I mean, like Philip Morley, guys like that. I mean, like really famous guys. They fly in. They're great. Yeah, it's really well worth it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Alex?
I don't have anything because me going to those events is kind of a scheduling thing that is going to depend on the cross country and track season, and so we'll see if I make it into there or not. So I don't really have anything for events on the radar.
I was prompting you for the Patreon raid.
Well, you gotta signal me somehow to do that.
Don't you have a
Follow
sound
along
effect?
in the notes.
Don't you have a sound effect for the Patreon read?
We don't.
No,
He's
we
part of
don't.
this group.
Patreon.
No, I've got
See?
so what we have is patreon.com/whatchamakingshow, and that is where you will find all of our beautiful tiers, which if you forget what they are, you can rewind back to the beginning of the podcast and you will get all of the details on those and the wonderful benefits that we offer there. And so yeah, that's the Patreon stuff. I think that's all I've got in the notes, at least, that I actually looked at.
And my Patreon too, patreon.com/BustedKnuckleWoodworks.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
throw that
Lee,
in
where
there.
can the people find you?
Oh yeah, well, patreon.com/BustedKnuckleWoodworks, Instagram Busted Knuckle Woodworks, Facebook. Someone took Busted Knuckle Woodworks on Facebook, so it's just Busted Knuckle Woodwork as I say, leave off the last S for savings.
That extra one costed you that you didn't want to pay for.
Exactly. And no, I actually tried to contact the guy, and because he doesn't use it, but I never could get a hold of him. But anyway, and of course, Busted Knuckle Woodworks on YouTube. That's the important one. Go subscribe, watch. If you start watching a video, you have to watch it all the way to the end, or else my dog doesn't get to eat.
All right. Well,
All right.
Thank you, Lee, so much for joining us.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun. Hanging out with the mayor.
He's being nice.
Hanging with the mayor and all. Do you remember that song from Steely Dan? Hanging with the mayor and all his friends.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching and for listening to our podcast. And just remember, if we don't see you,
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
good night, everybody.
Night, night.